Everyone get out!
Hello tankers and tankettes, welcome to a viewer spotlight. This is courtesy of Nora. No, not Nora, Nora. Honestly, listen more carefully you guys, you'll get it eventually. And it's, well, it's very obviously the M3 Lee, and this thing has a bit of a reputation. Not entirely deserved, but it's not a fantastic tank. However, you're going to see some interesting play here. You're going to see the Lee doing things maybe you wouldn't think a Lee could do. Nora freely admits he's basically, this is his pimp tank. He spent 1200 gold on the crew plus permanent camo, so he spent actual money on this thing. He spent 1.2 million credits, I think 1.2 million, on optics, rammer and vents, and he's also running it with octane fuel. So yeah, this is his pimp tank, and not many people can say the M3 Lee is their pimp tank. So yeah, you're one of a select few band of merry, I don't know what. I don't want to say anything too insulting because you did send this replay to me, so let's just stop there. Anyway, the Lee is actually, the thing that makes it not terrible is actually the gun, and it's got a pretty damn nice gun. It's got a good rate of fire, it's got pretty good penetration, the accuracy is okay, but I think the thing that trips a lot of people up with the Lee is they think, oh, it's a medium tank, and then they try and play it as a medium tank, and it's not really. It's more like a tank destroyer. And most people coming to the Lee for the first time probably don't really know quite what to do with the tank destroyers especially, and they get, you know, they think, oh, well, this is a terrible medium tank, and it is a terrible medium tank, but it's an okay tank destroyer. I think it actually plays much more like something like the Su-85B than it does, say, the T-28. So, talking of T-28s, that's what's right in front of him. Now, he does a thing here. He switches to APCR, and he actually says in the description of the replay, he doesn't realise that he had actually switched to APCR, and it's not really necessary against a T-28, but you see that he doesn't switch back. This wasn't intentional, this was just his fingers slipped on the keyboard, or maybe he's like me, maybe he's got a gaming mouse and his thumb slipped, I don't know. So he's being a bit cautious on this corner, because this corner, it's basically the wrong way round for his gun. He's actually got to stick out most of his tank to get the gun on target, and that's a blessing and a curse with the Lee, because sometimes it works in your favour and sometimes it works against you. He's also, you know, there's still plenty for other people to shoot at, even though he was managing to hide about half his tank. There's still that tall turret to try and hide from the enemy, and you can't really hide it under a lot of circumstances. In fact, most of the time you just can't hide it at all. So he's lost half his health there against a B1, and even when it's top tier, you know, the B1 isn't great, but it's it can do okay when it's top tier, but that time he was outplayed by the Lee. So he's now behind these guys, and these are actually a trio of targets. He's less got to worry about the gun. The medium 3 actually potentially would have the nicest gun out of those ones, but as you can see there, he's actually managing to bounce some stuff here, so that's quite nice. It's more that they're a little bit further away, that their guns are weaker, maybe their crews aren't as good, so he's actually managing to stay reasonably safe. And he is using this wreck for cover, but it's not that effective with the Lee, because like I said, it's a tall tank, so quite a lot of it sticks out. Now the rest of the team isn't doing so well, it's 7-9. If we look at the mini-map, the rest of the team is actually pretty scattered. The largest concentration left is actually next to Nora. It's the Matilda, the Hetzer, and himself. And, you know, there's an enemy Matilda at the cap already, so they've got to go back. There's not that much choice. We know there is a Hetzer guarding their cap. We know there's stuff pressing up the coastal path. We know there's an Electo in the middle. That Valentine 2, just plain old Valentine, isn't going to last very long. So they really do have to get back and actually do their best to defend. I'll also point out the damage counter at this point, because, like I said, the rate of fire on this is pretty nice. 1400 damage, that's actually pretty good for a tier 4. And, okay, it is possible to do it in things like a Matilda or a Hetzer, but you don't tend to associate Lees with high damage counts. But when you're top tier, if you can keep your hit points for long enough, and that is crucial. Like I said, it's a lot more like the Su-85B, which is paper armor, but it's got a pretty nice gun. And hey, does that sound familiar? It's a case of hiding yourself as much as possible, and you have to kind of rely on other people to do take the hits almost, because even when you're top tier you don't especially want to get shot at a lot. You don't really have the manoeuvrability. The lack of turret as well means that you've got to be really careful. So there we go, he's making short work of this Covenanter. He is under fire by the Matilda though, and he takes a hit there, which is unfortunate. The Matilda, at least, you know, it's not a... The penetration of the Matilda doesn't matter so much when you're firing at Lee, because lots of stuff would pen the Lee. It's more the fact that it doesn't have very high alpha damage, so he's able to survive that hit quite easily. And look at this, sidearm of the Lee, of the Matilda rather, no problem at all. 3 shots, bam, dead. And it's very lucky that friendly Hetzer didn't get hit in the side there. When somebody's sat there unloading like that, it's generally not a good idea to drive in front of them. So yeah, that Hetzer did get lucky there, he didn't lose any health. Our Matilda is actually... If the Matilda on Nora's team had actually been a much better player, Nora wouldn't have done nearly so well. Because look, we're up to 2k damage. That ammo rack. This Matilda was so hesitant, so I'm going to guess that guy in the Matilda there was a pretty new player. They really didn't know what they were doing so much. I have to say, this is actually Nora's second time in the league, because he actually rebought it. Now, he says this in his description. When he played it the first time round, he didn't quite get why, you know, there was so much hate towards the Lee, and actually liked it enough that he rebought it, put a gold crew in it, etc, etc. So there we go, 2200 damage now, and it really has racked up. There's a pair of Hetzers left. See if he can get those last 2 kills, that'd be quite nice. Now that one goes in. I think that guy must have a dead engine or a dead driver or something. 2 bounces, unfortunate, but at this point he is safe to go forward, so he does. Carefully though, he doesn't want to thump down there and take off more hit points. Not that he's got that many to spare at this point, so yeah. The Hetzer that's on our team is actually doing some decent work there. Our Matilda is, I think, finally doing a bit of damage, maybe. I'm not sure what the Matilda's score was at the end. We shall see when we come to the end scores. 9 kills! There we go. And that's it, game over. And yeah, 9 kills in a Lee with 2500 damage in a Lee. Now this was an 810 replay, so he got a sniper medal for that. He got a top gun, and that was also his ace tanker. And this was actually only the 3rd or 4th battle after he'd rebought it. He basically did more than the rest of the team combined. And we see there the other 2 surviving guys. The Hetzer did 239 damage. The Matilda did 166 damage, and those guys were actually platoons, so I'm going to guess they were relatively newer players, because when you've got a Hetzer and a Matilda in that kind of situation, and it's actually a Lee that's doing all the cleaning up, then that hesitancy actually worked really well in Nora's favour. The Matilda on the enemy team did pretty reasonably well, you know, 1000 damage. That's probably par for the course in a Matilda when you're top tier. But yeah, there were quite a few on... I'll say quite a few, but there were a few on both sides that actually didn't contribute to the battle at all. But hey, it's a low-tier battle. That happens. So, yeah, that was a pretty good match, I think. And 2500 damage in a Lee. You don't see that every day. I thought that was worth sharing with you guys and gals, because it's not a common sight at all. It really isn't. And like I said, I don't think the Lee is terrible. I mean, it really isn't. It's just, it doesn't suit a lot of people's play style, and it is an awkward tank a lot of the time. Some tanks are less popular, not because they're bad, but because they're more difficult to get to grips with, because they're less flexible, and you know, it's kind of a no-brainer that people will go for the ones that are all-rounders that do well in most situations, whereas some, like the Lee, you have to work a lot harder in some situations than others. So, if you enjoyed this replay, this rare sight, the Pimp M3 Lee, you can hit the like button, you can leave a comment below, you can subscribe to my channel, and of course, as always, stay tuned for more.